Hey guys, welcome back. We have a midweek energy update that we need to get into today. This week there is a powerful or intense, maybe like borderline tumultuous emotional energy that's going on out there, especially maybe in the context of relationships, romantic connections, other people, partnerships, financial situations, matters of the heart generally. Venus and Pluto are in an opposition this week. They're going to be squared by the moon in Scorpio on Thursday. That is bringing its own intensity. We're going to be moving through black moon energy Thursday and Friday this week as well. On Wednesday, the moon in Libra forms an opposition to Chiron in the sign of Aries. That could also be bringing up some hurt feelings, emotional wounds. People could be really feeling like extra victimized, extra wounded, extra sensitive, extra emotionally triggered this week as well, projecting out. I do think something about the energy field this week could be bringing up like the darker side or what's been hidden or like the underbelly of romantic relationships, situations with other people, like toxic attachments and stuff like that. And also there's something here about like collapsing the false images or false pretenses or illusions or like faulty ideals that we may have been operating under that maybe kept us attached to situations. So I think it could be a pretty revealing couple of days. Self-analysis is also always recommended when we are moving through black moon energy, as we will be over this next couple of days as the moon transits Scorpio, activates the black moon in Scorpio. Really good period of time to like get it to the root, get to the core of some of our own issues and why we act and respond certain ways in relation to certain triggers or other people as well. And generally, you guys, there's a lot happening Wednesday and Thursday this week, especially because of the moon making aspects and just that Venus-Pluto opposition. Could be some intense times. So let's get into it, you guys. Take a good look at everything that we do have playing out Wednesday and Thursday of this week and what perhaps that could mean for us as we move through the midpoint of our week. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. My name is Aubrey. This is your astrological outlook of the day where we are narrating the shift of the ages. And if you guys stick with me until the end of this report, I have done a collective tarot reading for us today as well. I like to tap the energy field from more than one modality whenever I'm doing these energy overviews just to get an alternative energetic perspective on what's going on out there. So there could be some messages in there for you. We're going to do that at the end. We have a whole bunch of astrology to get into. As I mentioned in my intro, there is a level of intensity and like tumultuous emotional energy that could definitely be surfacing and going on Wednesday and Thursday this week. Again, especially in the context of maybe like other people, relationship dynamics, financial situations. We have a Venus-Pluto opposition that we talked about in the video for Monday, but is also very relevant as we do hit the midpoint of the week this week. The moon in Scorpio actually on Thursday is going to square that energy as well, which will probably be activating and intensifying it even further. We also have black moon energy coming in on Thursday. The black moon is currently transiting through the sign of Scorpio. Whenever the moon specifically comes into the sign where the black moon is currently located or the sign opposing the black moon, this often makes that black moon energy, which rules our shadow side issues, right? Fears, worries, insecurities, doubts. It can make it just more palpable because the moon is like a trigger for energy. We are feeling it when the moon is activating it. So when the moon is activating the black moon, as it is Thursday and Friday this week as the moon transits through Scorpio, this could also be triggering some of these like deeper fears in the sign of Scorpio. This could have to do with the fear of loss. People could be acting, a bit overly maybe possessive, jealous, competitive. These would be symptoms of an activated black moon in Scorpio. And then when we also bring the Venus-Pluto opposition into it, that is also like a very kind of like possessive and compulsive and domineering and like power struggle oriented energy. So there just could be a lot of like emotional intensity going on, right? And then actually on Wednesday, the moon will still be transiting through the sign of Libra before, as I said, on Thursday, leaving Libra, entering Scorpio, squaring Pluto and Venus, triggering that black moon energy. But on Wednesday, before we get there, the moon is transiting Libra, which is Venus's sign. Okay, so this is also playing into that Venus-Pluto opposition. Simply the moon's presence in the sign of Libra could also be emotionally intensifying that dynamic of energy, which we will get more in depth into in a minute. But the moon in Libra also forms an opposition to Chiron in Aries on Wednesday. That's another like emotionally sensitive, raw, vulnerable energy. Wouldn't be surprised if there's like some hurt feelings or emotional wounds that are kind of more like top of mind that we're focused on, and perhaps, hopefully, focused on resolving, focused on healing, focused on changing maybe as well in the energy of Wednesday. One thing that I will say before I get too in depth into the ongoings of energy this week and what I've got in my report for today is we are quite, I think, like mentally oriented around finding solutions for core and root issues. Change is a major energetic push right now. We're in eclipse season. Our Virgo season this year is likely to feature a lot of changes, people making changes, lifestyle changes, changes to the way that we're doing things, rules, systems, protocols, the day-to-day habits, routines. This is also a major point of karmic release. Something about the interruption of patterns that have been perpetuating generally going on right now also that facilitates a process of growth. So I think those right there are kind of some of the dominant themes we're likely to see play out throughout the course of our entire Virgo season that we're moving through right now. But in terms of how we're getting this Virgo season started, because remember, we just had the new moon in Virgo a couple of days ago, and there was a very strong Venus-Pluto influence that was going on for our Virgo new moon as well. So it seems like relationships, financial situations, like interpersonal dynamics generally, things to do with self and other, could be at the root maybe of some of these changes that are likely to take place that could be quite systemic that happen to be going on throughout the course of this Virgo cycle. So centering back on where we're at on Wednesday, even though we do have this level of emotional intensity at play, I also think that things are calming down a bit in the context of just like the flurry of energetic activity we had going on to start the week. If you guys caught my last video, I was talking about how the moon entered the sign of Libra on Monday and really set off a whole bunch of aspects and transits that could have been like initiating some type of development, some type of movement, some type of progress in terms of something. We also had some vibe shifts going on. Venus left the sign of Cancer, entered Leo, came into that opposition with Pluto, which is something that we are still talking about in the energy today. Of course, we also started the week with a Sun-Uranus square, and that orb is widening as we get to the midpoint of our week this week as well. So it may have been an unusual start to the week. Things may not have started out the same way they usually do. Again, maybe some like interruptions to patterns or schedules or routines that went on, but I do think by Wednesday things should be calming down a little bit and kind of like normalizing, maybe like straightening themselves out, getting back on track in terms of like just the standard flow of things a bit more as we get to Wednesday and Thursday. But there is still, I think, like a lingering strange energy going on. Again, a lot of things are centered around relationship dynamics right now. Venus, right, just entered the sign of Leo. As I said, she's been in opposition to Pluto, also forming a trine to Saturn and Neptune, retrograde in a conjunction in the sign of Aries. Now, on one hand, this is a very creative energy that, I mean, the imagination can really be inspired to manifest some beautiful things that are like outside the boundaries and the borders of what is traditional, what is convention, what's been done before. Like there could be some very new and beautiful like almost like divinely inspired creative or artistic expressions that are coming through in this energy. But this is also, I think, really collapsing perhaps some ideals or some beliefs that we have been holding, perhaps specifically regarding other people or in relationship situations or financial dynamics that could be leading to maybe some confrontations, transformations, changes of hearts, or power struggles as we hit the midpoint of our week this week. This energy, Venus in Leo opposite Pluto in Aquarius retrograde, trining Saturn and Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries. That whole situation feels a bit like the death of the facade to me, the end maybe, or the collapse or the breakdown of some type of false impression, like a sense of disillusionment coming through, false ideals, unrealistic expectations, again, like most likely having to do with like things centered around the self and other people. This could have to do with love. This could have to do with romantic situations, especially with Venus in the sign of Leo. It could have to do with passions. It could also have to do with creativity or projects, but or teammates also with Venus and Leo. But this can also, I feel like there's a theme of like betrayal or abandonment or like sacrifice or some type of like indebtedness or something like that that could be coming up this week. Unmet ideals, unmet expectations, again, like false impressions that cause some type of major transformation, maybe neglect, maybe dishonesty, manipulation. When we have Saturn and Neptune and Pluto all like pressing on one planet, and especially Saturn and Neptune together retrograde in the trine, like that blurs the lines of things. Like there's no real authority or integrity or accountability. Like that can be very wishy-washy, very like non-linear, non-corporeal, like hard to pin down, hard to understand, okay? And then the opposition to Pluto as well, like this is what's been hidden, this is what's been secretive, this is what we have been unaware of. Saturn is also the structures and the forms of things. Neptune is illusions, fantasies, ideals. All of them retrograde, and Venus being there, that is, you know, what we desire, what we love. Venus and Leo, again, matters of the heart, like what we are passionate about pursuing. There could be a lot of confusion going on right now, you guys, having to do with what it is that we really want. There could be some things, the darker side of things, the underbelly of things, like what's been festering under the surface in connections and relationships, like the darker truths of situations somehow being uncovered here that cause the crumbling maybe of some illusion or some ideal or some expectation or some, you know, fantasy in a way that really changes things, really brings things to a head, really puts us at a point of, you know, needing to make maybe some decision that we like never imagined we would be at a point of having to like go back and forth on or about for some reason. There could be relationship complications. I do think that could be extra relevant or extra powerful or extra transformative, finding something out that changes the nature of like the whole situation. Truth that alters perception and shatters the illusion. That's basically all saying the same thing, but any version of that, or maybe like a combination of all of them. Wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are dealing with things along those lines this week. The moon, as I said, is transiting through the sign of Libra. That's ruled by Venus, while Venus is in an opposition to Pluto. This is like powerfully seeking some type of an emotional balance, and perhaps like power struggles being involved, things being unearthed or uncovered somehow being involved. The moon in Libra opposing Chiron, also maybe in a way that hits or presses on some old wounds or leads to some type of an emotional wound or hurt feeling somehow. This could also have to do with financial situations, but it could also be bringing about healing. It could also be helping us to learn some lessons and gain some wisdom so that we can finally like stop doing things. And again, like that really, I think, is the whole greater lesson here, is to figure out, you know, what the root or core issue is, and then come to a point where we can make changes to stop doing certain things that are perpetuating patterns that are blocking or diminishing growth right now. There's also a very growth oriented energy in the energetic field this week, as Jupiter is coming into a conjunction with the north node of the moon, both in water signs. There could be just some really big feelings or emotions going on all week, but I don't know, like spiritual growth and expansion of our faith, like the power of prayer truly like demonstrating blessings in our lives somehow. If you do find yourself in a place where you're just navigating the shadows, navigating the darkness, there is definitely cosmic support that comes through the power of our connection and cultivating our relationship to a higher power this week. So maybe something to be mindful of as this energy comes through as well. But people are probably, I think, going to be emoting maybe in some rather dramatic or performative ways. Mercury right now, the messenger planet, what we're thinking about, what we're focused on, what's coming out of our mouth, the nature of conversations is in the sign of Leo. Mercury is also in a sextile to the moon in the sign of Libra on Wednesday as the moon opposed Chiron. I think people could definitely be wanting to talk about their wounds, maybe wanting to like hash some things out or get some things off their chest. But we also have the Sun and Mercury actually right now in a mutual reception. Mercury's transiting through the sign of Leo. The Sun is transiting through the sign of Virgo. They are in each other's sign. So there's this like natural fusion of the like solar mercurial energy right now. Sun in Virgo, Mercury in the sign of Leo. I think that people are motivated and perhaps even a bit enthusiastic about like figuring out how to heal. Virgo is also a sign that has to do with healing, and we have a strong Chiron influence going on right now that is also healing, like figuring out how to solve problems in a way that like brings us back to life, restores a sense of internal balance, and helps us to again like gain a better understanding of maybe whatever these issues are that have kept us in states of repeating patterns or lifestyles or, you know, doing things or thinking things as well. A lot of this has to do with the thought patterning that drives the actions and the behaviors, so that, you know, we can get off the merry-go-round and figure out how to free ourselves from these perpetuating cycles. We are in a very karmic season right now. We are in eclipse season actually. We of course have a Sun South Node conjunction coming up, the South Node of the moon. This is the karmic release point in the sign of Virgo. This has to do with like the rules that we live by, how we order and systemize our lives, what we put into ourselves and our world essentially on a day-to-day basis, and what we get out of it as a result. This has to do, it's ruled by Mercury. It has a lot to do with thought patterns, and there is just a lot right now about, you know, changing the way that we're thinking about things and therefore like getting a different output. And a lot of this is going to be honestly like throwback stuff, like things that happened a long time ago that like programmed our mind a certain way, and therefore ever since then essentially we've been getting the same result, but for whatever reason, situations, events, circumstances, scenarios coming into play right now that cause us to like re-examine perhaps the root of that entire thing and make these foundational systemic changes, alter the programming that is these results are being derived from, so that therefore we are operating on a different program and getting different results. I think that, you know, that would be a very good way to describe what is happening energetically right now that we are likely to be responding to, whether we're aware of it or not. A lot is going to be surfacing, and again, strong Venus influence right now. A lot of it's going to have to do with relationships, but with the Mercury Sun mutual reception, and also on Wednesday, Mercury and the moon in aspect as well, while the moon opposes Chiron, it's like just make it make sense. Okay, analyzing our emotions, analyzing our thought patterns to get a better idea of what's going on, why it's happening, and what we can do to stop that perpetuating pattern. I think it's really ironic as well, because actually on Thursday the position of the Sun at 6 degrees of the sign of Virgo is a merry-go-round. So there are like these energetic themes of just these cycles that have been on like a continuous repeat pattern and figuring out like how to hit pause on that and reorient that cycle so that we are getting a different outcome from it somehow. So you may find yourself just literally like caught up in maybe analyzing your relationships or analyzing yourself or analyzing other people this week. And I do think, again, like that is a good way to use this energy. This could be a very triggered energy. We do have strong black moon going on. People are likely to be projecting. People are likely to be acting out. Forcing change, like trying to force another person to change because we don't like the way that that person is dealing with us or is acting towards us, or we feel like that person is kind of like at the root of what our issues are perhaps. I just don't think that's the way that we're going to get the best results in this energy. If we're being triggered by other people, we need to figure out why that behavior bothers us so much. Of course, it's always going to be annoying when people are, you know, being ugly or being mean or not being nice. But the amount that like people's, you know, essentially like cruelty impacts us is based on our own internal vulnerabilities for the most part. Of course, if it's just like blatant abuse and stuff, that's a different story. But when we're talking about these emotional triggers that come up, oftentimes the reason why we're triggered is not actually because of what's being said. It's because of how what's being said is poking into some unhealed wound that we have within us. Like, for example, you know, you might have two different people out there, like to just keep it as basic as basic as basic. Like, let's say one person has a core wound over not being smart. Let's say like they've been told their whole life that they're not smart, but they're like very beautiful and they've never been criticized for their looks. And then let's say we have another person who their entire life has always been encouraged and supported and, you know, told like how smart they are. And, they like don't have a lack of confidence in terms of their intelligence, but let's say that they've always been like bullied or made fun of for their looks. We've got like these two oppositional personality types right now, and let's say we have like one bully out there, and that one bully is telling both of these people, you know, that they're not smart and that they're not good looking. Okay, the bully is, you know, like both of these insults are the same, okay, but the person who has the core wound regarding not being intelligent is going to be way more wounded by and feel way more victimized by the bully telling them that they're not smart. The person that has the core wound centered around not being attractive is going to be way more wounded and feel much more victimized when they are insulted by way of, you know, their looks, okay? So it's like that person that has confidence in their looks, if that bully tells them that they're ugly, they might think that that wasn't a very nice thing to say. You know, they might think that that was rude. They might also be a little bit confused and wonder if there's something wrong with that person's eyes because they don't have an insecurity around their looks. But you know, that bully tells them that they're dumb or they're stupid or they're not smart, they could immediately get triggered and have this like really powerful emotional reaction, not necessarily because of what that bully, like anything special about that bully, but just because of that is their weakness, you know, within them. And the same thing, of course, then could be said for the person that has the insecurity about the way they look. If the bully's like, oh, you're dumb, you're not smart, that person's going to really question the intelligence of the bully and probably not be super offended by it. But then if, you know, they are insulted based on their looks, they're going to feel way worse about that. So kind of got to keep that in mind. You know what I mean? Like, oftentimes when we're being triggered by people, it is not even so much about like the other person or what they're saying or any of that. It has a lot more to do with the sensitivity or the vulnerability or the unhealed core wound within us that is being triggered by whatever that particular statement is. And so, you know, to get super defensive or to have this powerful emotional reaction or to, you know, project out and act in certain ways based on these emotional triggers. You know, we could do that. We could rage out or crash out or, you know, get all upset about things, or we could be like, hold on a second, why is this making me so upset? Like, what is this actually stemming from? Like, what happened to me that causes me to be so hypersensitive to this particular type of thing? And what can I do to fix that? What can I do to change that so that I am not at the whim or at the control of just anybody out there who presses on my wound? Because that's really what that is. You know, black moon energy is super powerful in terms really of controlling the way that we react and respond and create and manifest our lives. Because when we have these emotional responses, we can really become people that we're not, just because we're so triggered. And it's like, do you want to allow other people to have that power over you whenever they choose to say something that, and you have to understand too, you know, a lot of times in these relationships, a lot of times in toxic relationships or codependent relationships or relationships where there are varying power differentials and stuff like that, or relationships based on any type of trauma bond, like people will zone in on your sensitivities, on your vulnerabilities, and then use those to control you through eliciting these powerful responses that you may be unaware of, or that just make you feel out of control because of the fact that they're so unhealed and they're so sensitive and you're so vulnerable to them, and, you know, are going to react when they're pressed upon. That can really be a way that people manipulate people in relationship dynamics, again, specifically like toxic relationship dynamics, which can be a theme when we've got a Venus-Pluto connection, opposition, square, even a conjunction going on like this. So again, the black moon energy, while it can oftentimes reveal the uglier side of things or have people acting from what may not be their best self, it also gives us the opportunity to gain the deeper awareness of like where this impulse is stemming from, like what unhealed within me cares so much if that person says that thing that I'm willing to become someone or conduct myself as someone that, you know, I'm actually not, or act in ways that is self-sabotaging or not good for me, or that causes me to pursue something or to desire something that maybe truly isn't in my best interest. And what can I do to, you know, take that apart, to get to the bottom of that, to heal that, to release that, to integrate that in ways that make me no longer susceptible to those strings being pulled whenever anybody, friend or foe or stranger or somebody I've known my whole life, decides to like push on that button. So, you know, perhaps not the most pleasant experience, but a very, very purposeful, very, very meaningful, very, very valuable way of utilizing or dealing with maybe some of these more triggering or more painful or just like emotional, sensitive, or raw stuff that could come up this week. We can get a lot of profound healing, transformation, and growth that goes on if we can kind of sort through some of this stuff and release ourselves from some of these attachments or patterns or just ways of thinking, doing, and being that truly are no longer in alignment with the person that we are actually in the process of becoming right now. Okay, so, and also, the position of the black moon as it is being activated on Thursday this week is at 18 degrees of Scorpio. That Sabian symbol is a path through the woods rich in autumn coloring. So we've got the sun at 6 Virgo, a merry-go-round. We've got the black moon at 18 Scorpio, path through the woods rich in autumn coloring. Chiron and Pluto are both about worth and wealth and value and like what's held deep within and the power that it truly holds. And we can discover the depth and the richness of our own emotional inner world, despite some of the shadows maybe that we do have to navigate along the way. And we truly can extract a lot of value out of maybe some of this darkness that we are navigating throughout the course of the week as well. Again, this Virgo season wants us to change our lives in some way for the better, and for whatever reason, we need to start out with a focus on our relationship, self versus other, karmic cycles, karmic attachments, also things having to do with money, matters of the heart, and perhaps what we sacrifice or give up, where we betray ourselves maybe in order to maintain the peace, maintain the balance, maintain an image, maintain a facade, to have something, to possess something. Okay, so food for thought. Those type of themes. Thursday, as I've said, Moon enters Scorpio, squares Pluto and Venus. This does to me, again, really press on that Pluto-Venus dynamic of things. This is a square aspect with the Moon. This could be some turbulent emotions going on, struggling maybe with temptations or addictions, power struggles, this jealousy, possessive type of energy, deceit, betrayal, lies, manipulation, the darker nature of interpersonal situations and relationships, and again, these toxic attachments, fears of loss, fears of abandonment, power plays, competitiveness. There could be some type of focus on the fear of loss that could be emotionally playing out somehow on Thursday. I've talked all about already how oftentimes these triggers can bring out our darker nature, and when we feel that happening, it should be a good indication to, stop. If we need to press pause on the situation and, do whatever we're doing and come back to it later, sometimes that's a good idea. But the more that we can use this energy to gain a greater self-awareness, instead of allowing this energy to cause us to desperately want to maintain power or maintain possession or maintain dominance maybe over something or over someone, with these fears surfacing, there's a couple ways that we can play it, and I have already stated that it can be very healing if we're using it in the right way. It can also be very destructive if we are using it in the wrong way, but also, who am I to say that destruction could also be part of a necessary process of change and transformation that's underway. So we do have an opportunity for growth here. We do have an opportunity to release ourselves from these subconscious programs and trauma-based triggers. We truly no longer need to let the past define us anymore. That Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's going on over there right now in the very beginning of the sign of Aries, that's a major indication to me that we truly have reached a karmic turning point, okay? And the way that things have been done, again, systemically, as above, so below, inside and outside, microcosm and macrocosm, for extended periods of time, the history, the legacy, the convention, the tradition, so much of this is breaking down right now. It also, again, has to do with the breakdown of the belief or the ideal or the illusion, essentially, that we have, that has structured our reality. It's like the beliefs that we have maintained that have a certain set of rules that go with them that have become our operating mode for a long period of time. And some may even say the past 2,000 years, as we are also transitioning ages right now. Our entire interpretation of history in the past and the structure of our reality, I'm telling you guys, over the next 20 years, a lot of what we think we know, of what we have literally called fact for long periods of time, is going to become well-known, fiction or myth or inaccurate information somehow. We're definitely going to be expanding our awareness or shifting our perception and living by the rules of the game are changing for sure. And that Saturn-Neptune conjunction retrograde right now in the beginning of Aries is fundamental energetic activation in that regard. And so across the board, therefore, really truly, like, if there ever has been a time when we can no longer let the past define us, like, this would be that time. And I really think that, again, like, the more that we can do to solve our root issues and redefine and reinvent ourselves moving forward, the more cosmically supported we're going to be in that process. Also, I think I mentioned this earlier, we have a Jupiter North Node trine that is building this week as well in water signs. That is huge spiritual growth, you guys. That is like wisdom, truth, a bigger perspective. North Node in the sign of Pisces, the spiritual expansion, the power of prayer, blessings, fortune, luck, like prayers being answered, miracles coming to be. And if Jupiter's in the trine to the North Node, that means Jupiter's also in the sextile to the South Node, which is the point of karmic release. This is getting off the merry-go-round, or the merry-go-round. And like, again, Jupiter's blessings, Jupiter's like good fortune, Jupiter's growth, Jupiter's success. Like, the success comes through our ability to alter the way that we've been doing things and to open ourselves up spiritually to a more profound connection and relationship with God, Great Spirit, universe, the divine, however you connect to the conscious force of life here in our 3D world and reality. So we've got that going on as well. There's a lot of water energy, of course, represented by a Jupiter North Node trine, big emotional undercurrent to things. There's a huge spiritual lesson that is represented by a Jupiter North Node trine, and true wisdom can also be gained from the emotional experiences that we're going through now. This would also be indicated with the moon in Libra opposing Chiron in the sign of Aries as well. We also do have the North Node of the moon right now at 19 degrees of the sign of Pisces. That Sabian symbol is a master instructing his disciples. So another indication of just this journey towards self-mastery, spiritual growth, overcoming our past issues, getting off the merry-go-round, breaking the cycle, expanding into a greater version of ourselves, okay? And also forcing change, especially in relation to the old systems, rules, and patternings of things. Friday, I will tell you guys, could be a super emotional day. On Friday, that trine between Jupiter and the North Node is actually going to be taken to another level as the moon continues to transit through Scorpio and forms a grand water trine with the moon in Scorpio, Jupiter in Cancer, and the North Node in the sign of Pisces. That could be a very like water-oriented day for some reason. It could be a very, very emotional day. There could be some deep emotional release that goes on. Actually, we also right now have the South Node at 19 degrees of Virgo as well. That Sabian symbol is a swimming race. So I don't know, there could be a lot of like emotions that we are navigating for sure on Friday as well, but also this could just translate into a lot of water, and we'll talk more about that in the report for Friday. We also, I think on Saturday, are going to see things lighten up a bit after the moon leaves Scorpio. The moon will enter Sagittarius, where it will be throughout the course of the weekend. This, of course, is going to again activate those early degree planets, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus. Moon in Sagittarius is going to light all of that back up again and put the emphasis maybe on a sudden influx of changes underway, change that just seems to be blowing in on the wind. It's likely to be kind of like another busy, a lot happening, change-oriented weekend as well. Overall, you guys, we are dealing with some pretty intense emotional energy centered around relationships, detox of the psyche, okay? Reprogramming the subconscious, interrupting, disrupting patterns that have been going on that are not getting us the results that we want. I think that this is what we should kind of do our best to focus on, and also of course the faith aspect and dimension of things too as we move throughout the course of the weekend, but it could, or not the weekend, as we move throughout the midpoint of our week this week. But those of us who are less conscious and aware of this kind of stuff could be having a bit of a more difficult time out there. So maybe just something to be mindful of, FYIs, things to be aware of. That's what I have to say, you guys, about the astrology for the day today. We have a tarot reading to get into. It's funny because, you know, we've been talking a lot about the Pluto emphasis in our report, Venus opposite Pluto, and we actually had the Devil card come out today, which Venus-Pluto dynamics to me are really, really archetypally aligned with the Devil card. You know, when you look at this card, it has a couple that are chained together. They could take the chains off their neck and liberate themselves from the situation, but it's like for whatever reason, they're like attached or they're bound or they're karmically interwoven. It's like they're participating, they're almost choosing to participate in things that they know aren't necessarily good for them because they're getting something out of it that is benefiting them in some type of way, even if they are sacrificing a dimension of themselves that is ultimately like toxic or self-sabotaging to get it. So that could kind of be a theme that's coming up in the context of relationships or other people. And then it's funny because we had the Three of Cups come up after that. And the Three of Cups is also like other people. This is the group dynamic. This can be friendships. This can be social situations. This can just generally be the interpersonal relationships happening between people generally. We also have the Two of Pentacles in reverse. We had the Hangman in reverse. I think that a lot of people are going to be contemplating the deeper nature of some of the relationship entwinements or group dynamics or social situations that they involve themselves in, and, you know, wondering if it's still worth it, if this connection or this image or this like social cohesion or partnership or social dynamic is what they want to continue to be involved in. It's also interesting because I am also looking at the Three of Coins and the Six of Coins. The Three of Coins, this is again about like teamwork, like coming together, who we're working with and what we're working on and working towards a goal and the group effort and stuff. And then the Six of Pentacles, this is reciprocity. This is the balance of things. This is like, is it fair? I don't know, you guys, like it could have, like there could be, considering the astrology that we also have at play right now, I'm just wondering if people are questioning other people's intentions and maybe whether like the fun that we're having is interfering with the ability to get the job done, or maybe like what it is that we're sacrificing in order to try to get a certain result, but maybe realizing it's not all that fair. Questioning whether or not we want to continue to maintain that balance for some reason. But the Hangman, and when the Hangman, when it came out, it was actually in reverse to me. It's like gaining some type of an illumination, some type of understanding. Maybe this is something that we've been kind of going back and forth about or pondering for a while. The Libra moon can also sometimes really have us going back and forth about things, maybe playing the devil's advocate, not really sure, seeing things from multiple perspectives, questioning the true nature of like what is at the core or the root of something. And remember, the astrology is also talking about the breakdown of illusions, the recognition of like false images and impressions and ideals and stuff like that. So there really could be the root of some things or the true nature of some things coming to light, being exposed in ways that help us maybe detach from some things that we thought were bringing us joy, but for whatever reason, maybe we're realizing aren't as fair or as balanced, or helping us to create or to build what it actually is that we're realizing that we want at this point in time. So I don't know, that's what I have to say for today about the tarot reading. Let's grab a synchronicity card now. I'm asking God, Spirit, Universe, what is one final piece of guidance or insight or advice or inspiration or information that we should keep in mind as we move through this period of time? What do we need to know? Oh, it's interesting. Our card for today also says wait. Wait on the Lord and he shall save thee. Proverbs 20:22. Relax, let go, and let God. Don't struggle to make things happen before they are ready to happen. Wait and be assured everything is working together for your good. Now is not the right time to advance. Wait in faith and expectancy of the very best. Know that when the time comes to advance, you will be directed to say and do the right things. So a period of observation, you guys, a period, again, of like self-analysis, x-ray vision, solving mysteries, getting to the root, the core, figuring out what's really going on. There could definitely still be some confusion or disorientation, going back and forth a bit. Old wounds being triggered, but we definitely have an opportunity this week to get off the merry-go-round, figure out like what is causing the kink in the system. And our advice is to not do anything necessarily drastic this week. Wait on the right moment, and when that moment arrives, you will be directed to say and do the right thing. So that's our guidance for the day. Message from the stars, message from the cards. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, you guys. Share it with your friends if you think that they would also be interested in this type of astrology content. Leave me comments, you guys. Let me know what's going on with you out there. If you are having experiences that line up with what I'm talking about in these videos, drop me a comment. Let me know. That's very valuable information to me. If you want to know what's on this whiteboard, I have a Facebook group linked in my description box below where I post images of those boards. Go to my description, click that link, it'll take you to the Facebook group. That's where you can see the full photos of the boards. And come back with me on Friday, you guys. We have a weekend of energy to get into. As I said, we've gotten more emotional energy coming at us this weekend. Grand water trine and Mars and Saturn building into a square as well. So likely to be active, likely to be energized. We've got some more things to talk about and you don't want to miss it. So I will see you next time. You guys have a beautiful midpoint to your week. And until then, bye.